I'm also moved by it.
Yes. Yes, tell me about that. What moves you?
You talking to me?
I'll be doggone. Don't do that.
Well, I'll be doggoned. Welcome back to the Pretentious Film Bros podcast. I'm Nolan Jones, and I'm joined here with my co-host, Brady Odom. And here with the Pretentious Film Bros, it is always our mission to break down stereotypes and to build connections through film. Now, today we are beginning a very special event here on the Pretentious Film Bros podcast. We are entering into our first marathon. Now, what that'll look like is we picked a marathon theme, and then for the next 6 episodes, we're going to be looking at films that are connected in that theme. So for our very first marathon here on Film Spotting, we thought it would be fitting to pick a filmmaker that both of us are completely blind to. And not only are we both completely blind to this filmmaker, but this is a huge glaring blind spot in our film bro, in our pretentious film studies. This is a filmmaker who literally redefined a major genre of American filmmaking and took it from a B-list tier to where nobody really took these films seriously to where this is one of the biggest and most well-respected genres, not only of its time when he was making these films, but even still today. That film genre, of course, is the Western. And that filmmaker, then, is one of the greats of American cinema. It is the man, the myth, the legend, John Ford. So we thought for our very first marathon, it would be fitting for us to take a filmmaker who we have not had any experience with, but who was so significant to American cinema, to what it will become. I mean, John Ford was a director who made legends. He worked with people such as Jimmy Stewart. He worked with people most infamously as John Wayne, taking John Wayne from not really a big star to the American hero and the cowboy that we know him as today. This is what Ford did. He made movie stars in the classic Western and classic Hollywood cinema. So we thought it was about time that we paid this man the respect that he was due and took some attention towards his filmography. So what Brady and I have done is we've each picked 3 films from his filmography that we wanted to explore over the next coming weeks. Some of these are big films that he is known for, with major stars and major players. And some of these are maybe more obscure films that you've not heard of. Now, while many of these are Westerns or Western adjacent, there are others that maybe step outside of that common genre that Ford operated in throughout most of his career. And we've also decided we wanted to take these films just in their release order. We didn't want to do anything fancy, take his greatest films to his lesser known films or anything like that. We just said we're going to go through the films in the order that they were released. So Brady, the first film we have on the docket for tonight, the first film of our first marathon, John Ford's 1939 Western, Stagecoach.
Yes.
What were your thoughts?
Oh, yes. No, well done. Kind of leading us into this, John Ford was known as the myth maker, not just the man, the myth, the legend. He was the myth maker. And it usually would have to do and would revolve around his lead characters, his lead male cowboys, which we'll talk more in detail about those as we continue on down the line of his movies, and how they always arrive in a sort of mythical, legendary fashion. And John Ford, when he stepped on the scene, it was not a mythical, legendary fashion. It was come in, make B movies, and just do what you can.
Mm-hmm.
In Stagecoach, when it arrived, it had a pretty small budget. The budget was really donated by one person, and it was around $500,000. IMDb has a different number for it. It says it was in the 300,000s, so who knows exactly how much money it really was. But it also notoriously flopped. it only made about $16,000. So when you only make that amount of money, even on a shoestring budget, the turnaround for that's hard to come back from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about John Ford is he's a Hollywood man. John Ford was in Hollywood. He knew the people in Hollywood. In fact, there were people that he knew outside of Hollywood that he would then make stories about themselves. And these are big names. These are big people we're talking about. And you'll get to learn more about them in our future episodes. But for Stagecoach, this was one that had been on my watch list for a long time. This is like film school 101. If you're going to watch a Western, you need to watch a John Ford film. And if you're going to watch a John Ford film, it was always said you need to watch Stagecoach. And I can say, after watching Stagecoach, I get it. I understand why Stagecoach is one of those movies that you have to watch when you are a film lover. There are so many things that John Ford does in Stagecoach that I can't wait to dive into, because it is not just in one aspect of filmmaking. He really did have the whole package. He really did. He is in complete control of his movie, of his film that he's working on. And I've always been hesitant to believe in the auteur theory, right? Wes Anderson is one of those people too that you think about. You're like, if there's going to be someone to prove the auteur theory, at least in American cinema, he might be one, because it's so stylistically him. And if you don't know what the auteur theory means, it means that they have the say at the end of the day. It's not just a director who is maybe a little bit finicky or a little bit more hard to please or difficult to work with. Every frame is a part of who that person is. It's a reflection of like their inward self. And that when you look at the filmography, you most attribute to what the movie ended up being to that director, right? So another example would be like, oh, if you believe in the auteur theory, you would look at Michael Bay and say, oh, explosions, right? If you looked at an action adventure and excitement and big on-screen blockbusters, right, that you go to the movies to see, you would look at Akira Kurosawa and you would think, wow, he is the Japanese Western like master. And so when it comes to John Ford, he's the Western auteur. He is the guy who is making these myths, these people, these legends up. And he's not hiding it from anyone. He wants everybody to feel what this film is doing. And he wants you to know he made it. And so I don't know, too, also on the fact of John Ford, if you watch The Fabelmans, at the end of The Fabelmans, there's a cameo with David Lynch playing John Ford, right? Yep. And the energy that David Lynch brings to this John Ford character is a bit intense, right? Because he's talking to a child. He's talking to a young man, right? A young boy, and he's helpful but kind of ruthless in his attempts to talk to him. And the more you learn about John Ford, the more you realize that David Lynch actually did a pretty big up job on coming in as this role as one of the great forefathers of American cinema, right? Especially the Western genre. So Stagecoach, you go and you sit down, you turn on the movie. You're watching it on a screen at your house, and you're knowing that you're going to go in, and if you're like me, maybe Westerns aren't your favorite genre. Westerns have never been my favorite genre. But from the first frame, you could tell this was going to be something interesting. Off the bat, Stagecoach is a lot goofier than I anticipated Stagecoach being. This is a funny movie. This is not just a movie that is taking itself seriously with its very high concept thinking and high concept plot. Because it is one, right? This Stagecoach is a sort of representation of a microcosm of our world and the people that we're around and the inner workings and our inner demons that we try to work out. So you think you hear that, especially if you see that in the description, you're like, okay, this is going to be a pretty interesting Western, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's goofy. I mean, there's so many funny lines, there's funny moments, there's funny acting. Even the way people read their lines, it's more like a stage play. It doesn't feel like a movie in that way. Everybody's over dramatic, everybody's enunciating, and not just in that Atlantic accent that Hollywood would become popular for, but just everybody is in the best way possible overacting. And it fits what he's trying to do. And at the same time, you never forget how serious this movie is or how romantic this movie is. This movie's very romantic. It's very, like, it doesn't, I wouldn't say it tugs on your heartstrings like it would today, but there's lines. There's lines that you're like, wow, that was pretty profound. That was pretty deep. And you're thinking, why have I put this off for so long? It's a Western that makes you feel like Westerns actually have more to offer than what you think of in your mind. When you think of, oh, it'll just be cowboys, shoot 'em up, saloon talk, and spitting tobacco, and spurs, and, you know, always the landscape, right? Which the landscape is a very important aspect of Stagecoach. But Stagecoach, on its surface, is just a story about a bunch of people who are riding with the military, and they're headed towards this location. They're headed toward this place. And on the way there, you realize that the military is not going to be able to protect them. And this is a problem because where they're going is into the heart of this dangerous Native American tribe. So the Apaches, right? They're talking about Geronimo, who was the great scalper, as they discuss and they tell. They're like, he's a dangerous man. And where they're going, if they have the military, they feel a little bit safer. But they actually have to come to a vote. Are we going to continue, or are we not going to continue? Because we have danger in our midst, on our route. Are we going to continue into it? Or are we going to turn back with the military and call it a lost trip? And that's where I believe for myself, when I'm watching a movie, that's where the inciting incident takes place. You've got to meet all these people. You've got to jumble them all together. You have a ton of different characters. And they all add something to the story in its own unique way. My opinion on Stagecoach, after a one-time watch, which I will say, I probably will watch this film again. It will be one that I have to turn back on because I think there's so much there. There's so much in this movie. And as of right now, the star ranking I'm leaning is a 4 to a 4.5. High appreciation of Stagecoach, of John Ford's 1939 classic. And I'm starting to think I get the hype behind John Ford. And so those are my opinions on John Ford and on my opinions so far on the movie Stagecoach.
Man, you're already sold on the man, and we're just one film in. Didn't take much for you to become a John Ford stan, did it?
No. It took 20 minutes.
20 minutes. It's that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, Stagecoach is, I mean, the most true thing you said is it is far goofier than I had any idea it would be. I'm like you. I'm not one who naturally gravitates towards the Western genre. In fact, really, the only classic Western, really, that I've seen up to this point was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid from the 60s. And that was years ago. It's a fantastic one. It's another one that was far funnier than I really expected it to be. And it's one of those things that makes you think that, man, when filmmakers are having a good time, like they were in Butch Cassidy, but even as it appears that John Ford and his cast was here in Stagecoach, when filmmakers are having a good time, we get to have a good time. Mm-hmm. As the audience, we get to enjoy what they're enjoying. I mean, it's kind of like when you sit down to watch, again, pulling a little bit of a Western influence, a Tarantino film. You know Quentin Tarantino's having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? You have a good time. And that seems way off out of the blue to pull him in. He's one that very much fits the Western genre. The Hateful Eight is a big Western influence. Kill Bill is kind of an Asian Western influence that he brings there. So he's even stolen shots, I think, from a handful of John Ford's films in his own. But that's enough about Tarantino. We're not talking about him. We're talking about Ford here tonight.
Yeah.
But Ford, you could tell, was having a good time.
Mm.
Now, again, at the same time, Ford, from at least little bits of research and quotes here and there, Ford was there to make money. Mm-hmm. He was a filmmaker to make money. He was like, this pays my bills. This is why I'm doing it. But I can't imagine watching Stagecoach, watching how some of the moments play out, watching how bits of dialogue come out, that Ford was not having at least a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, to create something as you said, serious, because there is a lot of gravity in Stagecoach. It's this group of 7 people, many of them strangers, although they're maybe connected in one way or another, very vague connections, past histories, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. They're leaving from one town of relative safety to this town that's in the middle of Apache Indian country. That's very dangerous and very lawless. I can't remember the name of the town right now. Maybe you could look it up and tell me. I know it starts with an L. I can't remember the name of the town, though, as I'm thinking about it. But you've got this group of travelers that they could not be more different. And you're like, how could you ever be together in one place? This is going to be chaotic. There's going to be an explosion here with all these people that you're shoving into this little teeny tiny box on wheels. And you've got 9 people taking this journey, 2 driving, 2 at the drivers, and then 7 eventually that are crammed into this little car. But they all have their motives for taking this journey. They all have their reasons. Some of them are trying to get to their husband, as Miss Mallory is, or some of them are leaving a town where they've basically been kicked out by the snub-nosed, sticks up there behind people such as Doc and Dallas. And some are out in the traditional Western sense, seeking revenge, such as John Wayne's The Ringo Kid. And you've got all these people crammed together in this mess, this chaotic culture of what's going to happen. Is this thing going to explode internally? But then you've also got, as you mentioned, this constant threat of the Apaches. The closer they get, and the military travels with them so far, and they get there and they realize this isn't our final stop. You've got some characters that want to go to this town for some reasons. You've got others for other reasons. But this isn't the final stop. But the military, they're like, this is as far as we go. We've been given orders. We cannot go any further. Mm-hmm. So as you said, it's put up to a vote. Are we going forward? They decide to go forward. Mm-hmm. They find another place, another fort where they stop. And there's relative safety. And then there's not. And then more complications come in. And then it's like, okay, are we going to keep going further? And then they decide they're going to keep going further until they eventually make it to their destination town. But it's not an easy journey, as we'll get when we get into the later parts of the film. But that is all Stagecoach is. I mean, it's like you said, it's essentially a stage play inside this coach with a couple stops along the way in these different forts as they take their journey. It's so simple on the page. It's so basic. It doesn't seem like anything that would keep you engaged or entertained or really wanting to know what's next. But the way that both Ford, as the director and the screenwriter, and then this cast of characters and this cast of actors that they've brought together, this is a movie that's about the people in the coach. It's about the people. It's about this journey that they're going on. It's about their motives behind the journey. And it's about the relationships and the tensions between them that grow and change as the journey goes on. Mm-hmm. And it's really enjoyable. If you like character films, where that is the focus. It's little light on plot. Again, it's a journey from point A to point B with point C and D somewhere in the middle, and a great Western chase there at the end. That's all the plot is. It's really a film about these people, these 9 individuals, as they take this journey through the American West, through the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I don't know if I'm yet at the moment quite as high and loving as you are, but I liked this film quite a bit. And to play into your constant the ranking idea, this is a strong 4 for me. And this is a strong contender. I know it's the first film of the marathon, but this has the potential to be a strong contender for the top 3 of the marathon, and to be in the upper half of the 6 films that we watch. I have high hopes that Stagecoach will continue to carry on through the rest of the marathon. So we've talked about kind of how the lie of the plot is and how the plot really relies on the characters. So let's spend some time and let's dig in to some of these characters, if you're ready.
Oh, of course.
Let's just dig in and let's really meet these people and kind of talk about them, talk about kind of our reaction to them. I know when we talked a little bit before we got on this recording, we don't talk about films that we're reviewing for the first time before we get on the mic, especially if it's one that neither of us have seen. We always come to the mic fresh, but sometimes we'll mention here or there, we're like, oh, I think based on knowing you'll like this, or I think you might like so-and-so, or, that kind of things. Those are discussions we have, but we don't ever really talk about our reactions to the film until we get on the mic. But you mentioned something where you thought that I would be pretty favorable on this film because of a certain character.
Yes.
You thought that Dallas would completely capture my attention.
I thought she would be one you would favor. Just knowing from my experience and conversation with you, you're usually drawn to interesting female leads or supports.
Yeah. And I say all that to say, you are right.
Yeah,
of course you were right. Like, of course you were right. We've been doing this for years,
And when I watch a movie and I'm drawn into this strong female lead, I know for a fact you're going to be. Because it's not that I'm not as captivated by them, but I am usually more captivated by the male performances. I think that there's just something in my physiology that I connect more with them. With that being said, Lucy Mallory and Dallas are fantastic female characters. They are one. They
ladies steal the
show. It's one of those things where you watch it and it's the 1930s, and we'll kind of talk about some of the things that haven't aged so well in this movie. But one of the things that has aged well is the women characters. The female characters in this movie are independent. They're strong. They're fleshed out. They are equally as written as the other male characters. Yeah. And the actresses that portray them do a fantastic job. They hold your attention every time they have a scene.
They do.
And when you come to this movie, within the first kind of way he's setting up in the first 10 to 20 minutes, it's all about these people hopping on this stagecoach, right? It's all about these people. It's like they don't want to miss the train, right? They have to hit the train. They have to get on the stagecoach. And obviously, when you have that, the really compelling part about this is just how small the stagecoach is. Because there's no room to sort of ignore your neighbor.
No, it's like the width of a 2-person couch.
Yes.
It is not big at all.
At all. And the thing that John Ford did really well, along with the writers, is each character is very pronounced in their character. You have the whiskey drummer, you have the doctor, you have the sort of sturdy cowboy who's there for the young woman. He's going to escort her to her husband, right?
Right.
You have
Right.
you have the Dallas character who is this, you find out, prostitute. The way that they have sort of, the way everybody kind of snubs their nose at her, you could
Yeah,
tell.
they're going to paint her a lady of the night.
You have this character, which we'll definitely talk a little bit about him for sure. He's the rich man. I believe his name is Gatewood. And he has a line. He has a line that I thought was pretty fascinating that is a little bit either timeless or timely, however you want to say that. And so you put all of these unique characters, and not to mention, it's not just them that you meet. You also meet other characters as you go along.
Yeah,
right? You meet the Hispanic couple at when they stop. I believe it's at their second location.
Yes.
And they stop, and they're there to take care of them, and they're really like kind, sweethearted people. And he has the husband has one of the best lines in that movie as well that we'll talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah,
I laughed out loud. I laughed out loud at that line, and I was like, "Oh, that's terrible." But it just, the comedy and the humor through all the characters, it comes up naturally.
Yeah,
and in the same way,
it's baked into who they are.
It is, and in the same way, so does the sort of tragedy of each of these characters and
the
what
tension
they're wrestling with. Right, Ringo Kid, John Wayne's portrayal. When you meet him, the way the camera dolly zooms in on him, right? It is this like announcement that John Wayne is here.
Yeah,
and it's so interesting because we talk about, and obviously it's Ringo Kid in the movie, but there is something about having that John Wayne face that really brings that moment to the level that it hits, which it's a pretty high level. It's one of those moments where you're like, for a Western, that was pretty smooth. Like that was like
a pretty great introduction. Actually, I definitely took note of it, where it's just he's there, and then the camera goes whoop, and you're like, oh, there he is. There's our Western hero.
And he's on a horse, and it's so funny because immediately after that, he's just thrown into the back of the stagecoach.
Yep,
it's this sort of anticlimactic introduction, which you learn about his character, and you learn he's a pretty anticlimactic character. These things that he's kind of dealt with, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in he's kind of been screwed over. John Wayne's character has kind of been screwed over. He's an outlaw, but he seems to have people's best interest at heart, even the way they talk about him on the stagecoach, which also, I forgot to mention, another great character, someone who's almost could be a throwaway character, the driver, the man who was taking them in there. He is such a fun character. Everybody in this movie.
Yep. All right, let's stop there and camp for a minute.
Yeah,
because Buck was a character the second he came on the screen. I was like, who is that?
Oh, yes. Okay.
And I knew him, not him, the character, him, the actor. There was just something about it, but I'm like, this is a movie from 1939. I haven't seen many Westerns. Why does this actor strike such a chord with me? And I took a note of it and I wrote down, who is Buck? This guy sounds so familiar. I looked it up afterwards. And maybe I don't know if you've seen this movie or not, but I'm going to give you a rough interpretation of a line from it.
Okay.
You're no outlaw. Why, someday they'll call you a hero. Then the next line is, hero? Well, look at that. We've been pardoned. Pardoned? I didn't even know we'd been arrested yet.
Oh, no. It's not ringing a bell. I am so terrible with quotes. But
that's unfortunate. Let me pull it up here. It's Robin Hood.
Wow. Okay, I have seen that version of Robin Hood.
Buck is Friar Tuck in the Disney animated story Robin Hood. And once I realized that, I was like, of course he is. It was that voice that I recognized. It wasn't him, his features. It was his voice, because I was like, that voice is so iconic for some reason. He's Friar Tuck in Disney's Robin Hood, one of the greatest Disney classics ever. So I was like, oh, that's just, there was something about that that was so satisfying. And I was like, of course. And Buck plays this very similar character to Friar Tuck, where he's kind of just this guy he's there, he's trying to keep peace and care for these people, and he's not a bumbling idiot is the wrong phrase, because neither Buck nor Friar Tuck is a bumbling idiot, but they're a little goofy. They're very goofy in kind of the way they just portray themselves, but they've got this good heart that they're really looking out for what's best for the people around them. And when I Googled that and saw it, I was like, of course. And that just made me I was so satisfied that that's where I knew him from, and to make that connection. I was like, it's Friar Tuck from Robin Hood. Of course it is. Like, who else could it have been? So that was just, I mean, we'll talk more about Buck here as we continue on, because he was in the top 3 characters for me in this film. I mean, it was Dallas, Doc, and Buck. Those were the 3 characters that I connected with the most. I loved the most. The lines that they had kind of hit me the most. Some of the things they said and the feelings that they were feeling and sharing and expressing. So, plus they were the most enjoyable. I mean, they were the most comedic of the cast. They were the ones that just had that air about them that I'm like, I wouldn't mind grabbing a sarsaparilla with you. But I wanted to put that out there, because it bugged me when I heard his voice. And then when I realized what it was just so satisfying that it was an animated role. It was his voice that I knew. So,
wow.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I did not realize that. I have seen that Robin Hood movie, but not since I was a child. And so the fact that you were able to like pull that from memory is pretty impressive, because I did not recognize his voice for anything. And Buck was one of those characters that is the most, because they're all very, again, prominent in their characters. Like the way the whiskey drummer, one of the funniest running gags in that movie is that they keep calling him the clergyman. And he's not a clergyman. He doesn't do anything or act like a clergyman at all, ever.
Not at all.
What's so funny is like, why do they keep calling him the clergyman? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But he has this way of like kind of talking a little bit like bugged and really quick and like you're like, okay, that's an interesting way to talk, but I'll remember that. It's very memorable, right? Yep. I can picture his face when I'm watching it and when I'm thinking about it. And it's interesting that you said that Dallas, Doc, and Buck were your favorite characters. Mine for sure was Doc Boone. And that character, when I was watching him, I think it's the first scene he kind of has in the first bar that we meet him. And I was like, man.
Yeah, in that very first town before they even get on the stagecoach.
Yeah. And I was like, I really like this guy. I'm really glad, because I thought he was going to be the only one bringing the jokes, but he wasn't. He brings a good amount of the jokes, and his delivery is very like funny. But I sat there, I was like, man, I really like this guy. And I look it up. Turns out John Ford's classic Stagecoach was nominated for 7 Oscars. And 2 of them they took home. One of them was for best score, and the other one was best supporting actor. And that best supporting actor went to Thomas Mitchell, who portrayed Doc Boone.
Very well deserved.
It is very well deserved. He is, in my opinion, he is the standout of the cast. And he has one of the most important moments. He has one of the most important roles. And he
has one of the most important arcs.
Yes.
He goes on one of the most significant journeys of all the cast.
And it's not just an upward arc. And that's what I like. It's up, and then it's back down, and then it's back up. And I love that about his character, because it just showed how much time they really took. Because again, you said it's a basic destination story. Getting from point A to point B, what does that look like in between? One movie that it actually brought to mind when I was thinking about it, which I would argue the characters are not nearly as strong in, it's more about the plot and the action,
Mm-hmm.
but Mad Max Fury Road. That
Yep.
was one movie I thought of a lot watching this movie because one, you have the landscape.
Right.
You have one of the most action-packed scenes later on in Stagecoach,
Right.
and it's point A to point B. It's a very simple story, but it's very captivating. And I think that we have lost a little bit of the art of telling the simple story. Everybody wants to tell the hyper convoluted, extra, artistic, how we're going to play with time. It's basically the Christopher Nolan effect. Like, oh, we watched Memento and now no movie can be told in chronological order.
No more point A to point B.
Yep, every movie needs to be point A to point F to point B to point L. And it's like, okay, I don't know that we need all that, but here we are, right?
Here we are.
Stagecoach is that definition. It just takes 7 characters, 7 memorable characters to deliver your story from point A to point B. And it ends in a happy ending.
Yeah.
It's a happy ending. You don't leave the movie feeling let down. You don't leave the movie. You actually leave the movie. It has one of the most iconic exits, right? Riding off into the sunset.
Yep.
That classic cowboy Western trope that isn't a trope in this one because he's the one who defines it. Right? Even if it had been in B movies before, it was now, personified. It's now heightened because now it's in the A-list movie. Now it's in the movie people are going to the picture show to see, right?
Right.
And so it was the character work is truly remarkable in this movie. And my top 3 characters are Doc. It is Ringo Kid. Basic, but it's Ringo Kid. He's so good in this movie. And Dallas is my other one. So I do share 2 of your top 3.
2 out of 3 in that.
Yeah, and the reason I like that is because each of them get to go through this unique arc.
Yeah.
Either accepting themselves for who they are in Dallas, right? Mm-hmm. And kind of understanding your circumstances due to your actions in Ringo Kid, right? And Doc Boone realizing you're never too far gone to be a better man. The other thing that we didn't state, it's an hour and a half. It's not. Yeah. It's not.
It's that right? I don't even know that it's that long.
It's a short movie.
It's
not one
that you're
sitting there and you are like, wow, yeah. I went on such a journey. It's like, no, it's only on an hour and a half. It is tightly packed. It is well written. It flies.
Mm-hmm.
For a 1939 Western, it flies. For any movie, it flies.
It flies.
And the characters are the big reason why. And so I think each character, each of their arcs are so important to the story. And Doc Boone has this arc. One of the characters, this is a goof, I'll say, in the movie that I feel like it feels way out of left field when you're watching the movie because we're so used to movies nowadays.
Well, let's pull up though and kind of just back up just a little bit. Still with Doc Boone. So Doc Boone and Dallas they start at the beginning and they've got a history. They know each other. Seems like there's some sort of friendship, some sort of brother-sister type relationship between them where they have this compassion and care for one another. But they are on this stagecoach, not by choice, but really almost by force. Mm-hmm. Doc Boone is this disgraced alcoholic doctor who we don't know what happened to get to this point where they want to kick him out of town. But they're basically say, get on that coach or else. And they give the same spiel to Dallas, who, as they imply, is a prostitute, is a very promiscuous woman. And you really get that feel in this great moment where there's these old crotchety women who are all gathered up kind of in this circle at the stagecoach as it's leaving. And I'm going to just jump a line here and then we'll move back into the discussion on the character.
Of course.
But they're talking about how we're having these Apache and it's going to be dangerous. And somebody asked Dallas if she wants to go, if she's sure she wants to take this journey. And she looks out the window, or no, she has this line. She says, "There are worse things than Apaches." And she looks out the window of the stagecoach and she looks directly at this group of local old women with their noses stubbed high and their arms crossed and their faces all wrinkly and their spectacles all down low. And it's just one of those moments that tells you everything you need to know about Dallas. And Doc, very similarly. These are just two people that this town of do-gooders, of holier-than-thou, perfect types, are fed up with both Doc Boone and Dallas, and they want him out of their town. So really, they're two characters, maybe the two characters in this film that really start at the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
And then I'll let you go ahead and go with Doc Boone, where he kind of has his redemption moment over halfway through the journey. And he almost doesn't get it because the other people on this coach, they don't like Doc or Dallas either. They stub their noses up at both of them. They criticize Doc for being a drunk. They berate him. Dallas is just completely ignored. They sit as far away from her as possible at the dinner table. So Doc almost doesn't get this moment, but he does, and I'll go ahead and let you his big revealing redemption moment for Doc Boone.
Absolutely. And I think what's important to know about how these characters, what makes these characters as compelling as they are, is you have to kind of learn about who they are first by how other people perceive them. You don't get to learn about who they are by what they do. You have to learn about who they are from how others describe them. The way these old women look at Dallas, the way these other people talk about Doc Boone and how disgraced he is. And he is not as much so described perfectly like Dallas is. Dallas is perfectly described by others in that scene you just mentioned. You see him and you kind of see that he takes a drink and then he gets really excited when he learns that this clergyman is actually a whiskey drummer. And you're like, okay, because he's not a clergyman. He has nothing to do with the clergy. And he keeps saying that. He keeps saying, "I'm not a clergyman," which is just I feel like that's such a modern joke to me. But maybe it's really, we're bringing it back. But it's a very funny running joke in the movie. But it's also interesting because Doc Boone, Ringo Kid, and Dallas are all mostly outcasts. They don't have a lot to go back to, right? So they could just go into themselves and dwell in self-pity. But what happens with one of the characters, Lucy Mallory, who's on her way to her husband, a moment that we let slide because it's the 30s. Who knows what could have really happened?
Right.
But you learn this stick-twig woman, who you see all of. She's never concealed. She's never like,
She doesn't wear a bunch of big coats or blankets or anything of that nature.
And she faints, and it turns out she's pregnant.
To which Buck has the great line, "Well, I'll be doggone. Why didn't somebody tell me?" Which I said, "Why didn't somebody tell me?"
Well, and I think it could be possible that is a self-aware line in the movie, right? But you have this moment because Doc Boone isn't just, Doc because that's his nickname. He is a doctor. And before he's going to have to help deliver this child, he's drunk. So everybody comes to his aid and they're splashing water in his face. He's freaking chugging black coffee. He's trying to sober up. He's trying to make sure he's capable of actually delivering, a baby. And so finally he is awake enough and he is sober enough, at least enough for what they need. And he goes in there and he delivers the baby. And then on top of that, what's so wonderful about this movie is not only does Doc Boone help deliver the child, Dallas sort of takes a caretaker role while Lucy Mallory is recovering.
Yeah, for the child and Mallory.
because Lucy Mallory was one of those people who kind of held her nose up to Dallas and held her nose up to Doc Moon. There was a resentment towards them, and they both help her.
Mm-hmm.
To which, by the end of the movie, you realize you get to see that she no longer holds her nose up to them. She's very grateful, especially when she realizes that her husband may be dead.
Yep.
And there's a realization that you have to be with the people who care about you. It is perfect writing in so many different ways because you allow the characters to be the story. They don't tell the story. They are the story. And that is why the character is a Stagecoach. That's why if you're going to watch a movie, if you want to watch a movie and you're a writer or you're interested in developing characters, this is a movie to watch. Take Stagecoach and work from there because you will have just about every type of person, every type of arc go through this. Ringo Kid, he's also the outlaw, the outcast. And he builds this connection with Dallas because there's a line, we won't talk too deep into the dialogue yet. We're about to move into that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a line where she says, "You don't know who I am." And in a way, it's comforting to her because he doesn't have the background knowledge on her character. He doesn't have all the perspectives that have been thrown at everybody else in their town about who and what she is, right?
Right.
So he likes her because she's a pretty woman and that was double play on words, I guess. But she is one of those things where the history is not going to, her reputation won't precede her to Ringo.
Nope.
And that's a really sweet moment. And that's a really sweet bond they're able to build together. And you get to see how each of their characters, from what you know about them to what they get to tell you about themselves and what they learn about themselves on the way. It's not as though it's written where there's already been a perceived, this is how this is going to end. This is how this is going to move. It's like they kind of get to come into it on their own. And you feel that. And you feel that for every character, right? Some of them, characters like Buck, are who they are at the beginning is who they are at the end. There's not really a whole lot of evolution in their character, but that's okay. It's kind of like they've already evolved to who they're going to be. Buck is Buck, right? After the baby's born, you hear hyenas, and then you hear the baby crying. He goes, doggone, those hyenas sound like babies. Like, okay, buddy. And I thought, how is there a baby crying? Because I thought I was on the same page as Buck. I was like, they do sound like babies. And then there was a baby. Because again, one of the biggest shockers, it's a moment that it's like, it's hard to like get over technically, especially if you're like a snob about it. It's hard to get over it because you're like, they could have at least, it didn't need to be a shock that she was pregnant. She could have been pregnant at the beginning and that wouldn't have taken anything away from the character.
No.
We could have known she was pregnant at the beginning. Because when this baby's born too, by the way, the depiction they have, which is an actual infant, it looks like, is a pretty healthy baby.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a preemie or
anything
out of nowhere. It seems like this is a fully formed infant that is just here to be taken care of, right? So I 100% believe that if you ever were to watch a movie about characters, this is the blueprint. In every movie about characters, I believe, at least in the American genre, at least in the American like filmmaking industry, Stagecoach, you can tell it wrote the script on it.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know if you have other things to add. Lines will kind of inform our discussion about characters.
Right. Yeah, no, those are for sure just the big things of the characters that stuck out to me. And there's a temptation, I think, as you're watching this, or maybe even once you get past it, to think this is a movie filled with a bunch of stock characters, right? You've got the town drunk, you've got the town whore, you've got the businessman, you've got the charming outlaw, you've got the jailer who rides up with Buck on the coach, you've got the bumbling coach driver, you've got the snooty, wealthy woman who's off to see her son. You've got the charming gambler who's there to escort the pretty woman, who also you think, I think he wants to get with the pretty woman, but that's neither here nor there. So there's a temptation to see these characters as very stock, and in some ways they are very stock, but there's a growth and an evolution in each one of them. Some more than others. Again, Buck is Buck at the beginning. He's Buck at the end. He's the guy that's there to drive the cab and to care for his passengers. You know, the jailer, he's the jailer at the beginning. He's the jailer at the end. Although you could argue that there is some sort of character evolution in the ending moments with the jailer. Not all of them are as deep as Doc Boone or as Dallas, or even as Mallory, the journey that she kind of takes. So don't write these people off. If you decide to sit down and to spend time with these people. We are spoiling this film, obviously, as we're discussing through it, but at the same time, we're really not. Because it's not a film that really you can spoil. It plays out exactly as you expect a journey across a Western desert to play. And really, you don't watch it for the surprises or the twist, except for maybe the baby. Sorry, we blew that whistle.
But also, yeah, is it a twist? I guess, because
I guess, but it's not well set up. Twist of
pregnant when they left, because that's a healthy baby that's born. So.
I mean, you would have had to be, right? But no, this is a movie you take for the characters, and you take because you want to spend time with them. It really is a Western hangout movie. And I guess to kind of transition out of the characters and into the discussion about some of the dialogue and some of the moments and the scenes in the script. Really, it's a character Western hangout movie, and these characters are worth hanging out with.
They are.
They really, really are. So, with that, let's just go ahead and let's share some lines. Let's maybe share some favorite lines or scenes or moments. What do you got?
Yeah, this is a very quotable movie. And you know that because it's very funny. And it's not just situational comedy. In fact, it's very limited situational comedy. It's a lot line delivery, punchlines, one-liners that really get you laughing because they're delivered. And I think this is the biggest testament to the film. They're delivered with complete sincerity.
Yeah, completely straight.
Every line is played not for a laugh. And that's what makes it funny. And because you believe it and you feel like you're there, right? You know, we talked about the Hispanic couple. And they meet this couple at their second stop.
And actually, he's Hispanic. She seems to be Apache.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, because he actually has that line where he says he see no problem with it. So
the Apaches leave him alone, he thinks, because of his life. But yeah. So go ahead. I know where you're going, so let's go ahead and let's do it.
So he learns that one night, it seems, his horse has been stolen. His Apache.
Oh, no, you're going somewhere different. Okay, cool.
Okay, yes. So it appears his horse has been stolen, and they talk about the importance of the horse, and they also said that his wife is missing. Right? He can't seem to find his wife.
Or his horse.
He has
thinks his wife might have ran off with his horse.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, okay, maybe this is it. This is what's happened. And they're like, "Aren't you concerned for your wife?" And he says, "Oh, I could find another wife, but I could never find another horse like that." And you sit there and you're like, "Okay," and it's really funny because it's again delivered. Like he's almost, even when he delivers a line, it's almost like he's nervous about the horse. He's so scared that he's lost his horse. He's like,
oh he's terrified. This horse was his prize.
Yes, right. It was, and that's what is so funny about it is that he really means every word he's saying.
Yeah.
And nobody laughs at it, right? It's a very everybody agrees with him in a way. Like, oh yeah, for sure, dude. Like that's important. A good horse doesn't come around that often. And
this is a Western, right? It's all about the good horses.
Yes, exactly. So that helps you kind of get into the mindset of these characters who are also very content, right?
Hmm.
This Hispanic Apache man and wife, they seem to be very content people. He's a very content person. Even
Yeah.
after he finds this out, Doc Boone walks out and he asks if he has any liquor. He's like, "Oh, of course." He says, "This bar open?" He goes, "All day, every day." And he goes over and he starts drinking.
Yeah.
And you realize you're like, he's just there to do his thing. He's not out here trying to go the extra yard. He's a dude in a way. He's just a Bible. He's
He
just
is.
here, and whatever happens, happens. It's a shame, but you know what? Bar's open. I got
Yeah.
customers. So
So the line from the Hispanic man that stuck out to me that had me rolling, that was a good one too. But the one that I noted down was where when the company first gets there, and they're talking to the man and they're introducing and seeing all the people around, and his wife comes in, and then one of the company notes that she's an Apache. They make a note of it, and he says, "Si, senor. She's a little savage, I think." That line had me rolling. And of course, I mean, it's not the fact that, oh yeah, she's a savage, she's an Indian. Of course, I'm thinking as a male, I'm thinking she's a savage, and I just found the double meaning of the line absolutely hilarious.
yes, it's very funny, right? That is a good.
That was the one from him that stuck out to me, just the way, and again, with straight sincerity, nobody around it really responds. People, the company might have been thinking savage is Indian because that's the way they would have spoke about them, but to my 2026 still youngly married male mind, when I heard she's a savage, I pictured something completely different, and I just found the double meaning of the line hilarious.
Yes, I can 100% see that. And there's a lot of moments where it feels like each line is subtextual.
Mm-hmm.
No line is usually just on his face, right?
Right.
Yeah, another line that really stood out to me to define a character in a way, because this character he's not completely insufferable, but he's definitely the worst character of the bunch, in my opinion, and that's Mr. Gatewood. And he's sort of the rich guy that even the coach help didn't want on the coach. They're trying to figure out how did he get on there in the first place. And he has a line that it's the one I alluded to earlier. It's either very timely or timeless or however else you want to fit it in there. But the line he says is, "What this country needs is a businessman for a president." And I thought that was very enticing, very intriguing, because in 2026, we've now had a businessman for president twice. And it's just interesting that that is something that they've said almost 100 years ago. I mean, when this movie, it's like written 87 years ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it is crazy that that's where we're like at now. So to me, that's where I was like, okay. Okay, very timely, very interesting. So, what did you think about that line?
Yeah, it was great to watch this movie at this point in history because of that line. I mean, it had me. That was another one that had me rolling. I was like, "Yep, that's true." And depending on what side of the aisle you're on, Greenwood was either right or he couldn't be more wrong.
Is it Greenwood or Gatewood?
Oh, Gatewood. That's right.
Gatewood. Okay,
Yeah,
just making sure I couldn't remember entirely.
Yeah. He was either absolutely correct or you think he was as dumb as a box of rocks, depending on where you fall. But even before that line, and then the line that comes right back after it, he starts into this monologue. And the first line of this monologue, as he's talking just out loud, nobody's really listening to Gatewood. Nobody really wants to listen to Gatewood. They don't want him there. But he starts his monologue.
We don't want to.
No. But he starts this really long monologue with the line, "I don't know what's happened to the government." And I'm like, yeah, you and the rest of the country, buddy. Yeah. We don't know what's happened to the government either. But Harlan was like, "Oh, I know what happened to the government. They went crazy." And then he continues into this whole monologue that ultimately culminates in what this country needs is a businessman for president, to which Doc perfectly responds, What this country needs is more fuddle.
I don't know what the government is coming to. Instead of protecting businessmen, it pokes its nose into business. Why, they're even talking now about having bank examiners. As if we bankers don't know how to run our own banks. Why, Boone, I actually had a letter from a Popinjay official saying they were going to inspect my books. I have a slogan that should be blazoned on every newspaper in the country. America for Americans. The government must not interfere with business. Reduce taxes. Our national debt is something shocking. Over $1 billion a year. What this country needs is a businessman for president.
What this country needs is more fuddle. What?
Now, I didn't know what fuddle was, so I looked it up after the movie. Fuddle is a word that means to make drunk, confused, or dazed. Basically, what Doc was saying is this country needs more drunk people. And I just think that's absolutely hilarious. He said, what this country needs is more whiskey. And I just think comparing that with his line about the businessman and just comparing the two characters and what that reveals about each of them, I thought it was funny. And I didn't even know what the word meant. And after looking up the word, I'm like, yep, that's exactly what Doc would say. What this country needs is more fuddle.
I assume that's what that meant, just given who Doc is, because, also kind of in this same scene, I believe it was the same scene.
Yeah.
He goes to grab some more whiskey to drink. And the clergyman.
Right, the clergyman.
He goes to stop him from drinking, and Doc Boone sort of takes his arm and pushes his hand back and then continues to chug the whiskey.
Just get out of the way.
Yeah, he's like, no, I'm drinking. And it's funny because it is a funny scene.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as we kind of talked about, the dialogue here is people are trying to figure it out, right? Again, this Stagecoach is sort of a microcosm for our country.
Yeah.
It's these 7 people, you could say, make up the 7 corners of America, if you wanted to. Not
If
entirely,
you wanted to.
but if you wanted to. And at least different aspects of their character.
Right.
And so you have one who believes he could figure out the problem to our country's government. And then you have another one who's like, what we actually need is we just need to be more drunk. Because when I'm drunk, I'm happy. Is essentially what he's getting at, right?
Well, and he has a line later in the film where they think they're going to be surrounded by Apaches. And Doc goes again for a drink. And Buck this time kind of tries to stop him. And he says, my dear Buck, if I have only 1 hour left to live, I'm going to enjoy myself.
Yeah. And you see the sadness in that. Mm. You hear it because you know people like that in your life.
Yeah.
Who, whether it be alcohol or drugs or sex or some kind of other numbing agent, they're gonna jump into that, and they're going to use that to soothe themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's just unfortunate when you watch a doctor who has the capabilities of any other doctor who's just seen as a disgraced drunk now.
Yeah.
And instead of Doc Boone, he can be more aptly titled Drunk Boone. And it's really unfortunate, but it's crazy how well the writers, Ernest Haycox, John Ford, and I cannot remember the other name of the other writer, but how they all are able to have these funny moments that also reek of subtext it's just tragic. It's heartbreaking, right?
It is.
And so you're able to watch it feeling, and that's one of the things that it hurts and helps the film. It's one of the reasons why I don't know that it could ever, it's messy. Yeah. Stagecoach is for a straight, direct, simple film. The characters make it messy, right? You have a pregnancy and birthing scene. You have a shootout. You have a hunt. You have all these moments. You have a ride off into the sunset. You have a Western saloon. You have all of the makings of what makes a Western a Western. Mm-hmm. And the way they're kind of placed is incoherent. It doesn't necessarily make sense at all how they end up in the place that they're in. It just kind of happens to them.
Yeah.
But You could argue that's also how life goes. You could argue that it's not as logically consistent as we might think. This action leads to this consequence, and this action leads to this consequence, right?
Right.
You have all these different moments, and that's what makes up life, and that's arguably why this movie feels as messy as it is, and maybe that's what they were going for. And you have these moments. One moment, my favorite moment in the film,
Mm-hmm.
is between Ringo Kid and Dallas.
Okay, I think I know where you're going, but go ahead and go there.
And he's talking to Dallas, and he says, "Have I met you before?" And she says, "No, you haven't." He goes, "I wish I had."
Mm.
And you feel it because John Wayne's not delivering it with this sentimentality. He's not delivering it with this overwhelming, kind of like how everybody else had been at this point, this overacting.
Right.
John Wayne delivers it again, the sincerity of this film is really what works in its favor. He's able to sit there and he says, "I wish I had." And it's so sincere, it's so honest. And it's not played for sentimentality, it's not played for emotions, but it pierces you.
Why do you look at me like that?
Just trying to remember. Ain't I seen you someplace before, man?
No, you haven't.
I wish I had, though.
You're like, man, I get that. Because he's not just saying, "I wish I had," because he wished he had met her before. He's saying it because maybe if I had met her before, I wouldn't have been the man I am now.
Yeah.
You're like, with a simple line and a simple line delivery because of who he is, because every character is so perfectly fleshed out. That line, that is how you write subtext. If you want to learn how to write subtext, that's another reason. John Ford kind of lucks out in a way because he gets already a pretty perfect script that he just gets to have fun with and bring to life in the most exciting way possible. And he is able to direct these actors in the best way possible, and they bring it to life. It helps when the script is that. Because John Wayne could have delivered that line 10 different ways. But instead of delivering it with an over sentimentality, or instead of delivering it with a sort of nonchalance in a way of I wish I had, kind of trying to pick her up, trying to, seduce her.
Right.
He says it like a buddy. He says it like he's just talking. He's like, "Man, I wish I had." That is the best way he could have done it because it's just honest.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to dialogue, there's funny lines. I mean, what does Doc have? He's just spoken like a man, Reverend. Whenever he gets into the stagecoach, and again, this is not a clergyman. He has nothing to do with the church. And every time he talks about him, that's how he just... And I realized why. Because to him, he's bringing him his faith.
He's bringing his salvation.
Drummer, right? Whiskey is his religion. And so he calls him a clergyman because he seems to be delivering him his salvation.
Yep.
Again, sadness mixed with peak humor. And the lines, there's so many lines. There's so many quotables that you could pull just from this movie, which I think is what makes it stand out as much as it does. Because there are moments where it feels like a Hollywood film, but there are also moments where it feels like just a couple buddies got together to write a script.
Yep.
And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's probably, it may end up being one of the most quotable John Ford films, if not the most quotable that we watch in this marathon. Because there was so much of it that I enjoyed. Another line that was early on, and it must have been Mr. Businessman too that said this, but there's a line, "What's good for the banks is good for the country."
Yeah.
That was another one that just made me laugh. And I thought
that was Mr. Gatewood.
Was it Mr.? I figured it had to have been Mr. Gatewood. But then, the last, I don't know if you had any more that you wanted to point out. The last
There's
one I wanted to
throwaway lines, but go ahead.
Yeah. The last one that I really wanted to, there's two. One's funny and one's kind of more serious. When we first meet John Wayne's Ringo Kid, and he gets into this stagecoach, which already has 6 people in it. It's so full that John Wayne's kid has to sit on the floor of the coach. He crawls in and he says, "Hope I ain't crowding you folks none."
Yeah.
And I was like, yep. Yeah, 7 people now are in that little tiny coach. But the line that kind of hit me in the way that I wish I had hit you, there was another moment between Dallas and between Ringo. And it's when they're at their second destination. So they've built a little bit of a relationship at this point. They've built a rapport with each other. And they're walking outside in the moonlight, walking along that fence. And they're talking, and he's asking her, come away with me. I've got this place in Mexico. We can come and we can live, and I can be your husband and you can be my wife, and we can settle down. That's the gist of it. And she's giving him all these reasons why she can't. But she has this line where she says, "You gotta live no matter what happens."
Yeah.
And that, to me, that was the moment where I wrote in my notes, I love Doc and Dallas. It was that line from Dallas, and then the line, "If I'm about to die, I'm going to enjoy myself," from Doc. It was after those 2 lines that I solidified that I love these characters. Those were the 2 lines that, for those characters, really locked them in for me. So just that moment where she's out there on that fence and Ringo's asking her to go away with him. And he's like, all that stuff, it doesn't matter. And she says, "You got to live no matter what happens. Whether it be joy, whether it be tragedy, you got to live." That was the one from her that I felt, that felt the most of who Dallas was. You know, she knew she's done some terrible things in the past. She knew what people thought about her. She knew her reputation. And she knew she had to live no matter what. She had to keep going.
And I think it's also important, too, to, again, note that it's layered in subtext, because when she says that, she's not just saying you have to live your life. She's begging him to stay alive for her.
Yep. To not go into the town and to seek his revenge.
And it is this feeling of, she said "I love you" without saying "I love you." Whatever you do, you need to live. However it may go, whatever happens, it's like it is for not just himself, but for the hope that their relationship could be something in the future. And I think that's a great line to leave off of as we dive into our final segment talking about scenes, because I feel like those lines, again, they come from Ringo and they come from Dallas. And it's the heart of the movie. And so every other line, they're interesting, they're fascinating, they're funny, they're quotable. But those lines are the ones that I feel like they sum up the heart of what this movie was going after.
Yeah.
I wish I could be a better person than I am, and no matter what, I need to keep trying to stay alive. I need to live the best life that I possibly can. What else do you need to say, right?
Get in there right there. We're done. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we dive into our last section, this movie, kind of what makes it as famous as it is. Just, we think it's the characters, and of course the characters are part of it. I think it's the dialogue, and of course the dialogue is a part of it. But what makes this movie really stand out is the practical effects and the scenes that John Ford is able to capture. John Ford is a fantastic action director, right? There are so many moments in this movie, especially in the latter half, as the movie is coming to a close, where you think, how did they do that? And I don't just want to give all the credit to John Ford. There is another man who I would say is the bigger reason as to why the action stunts work as well as they do. And his name was, I believe it's Yakima Casenet. Or Yakima, I believe it's Yakima. But Yakima Casenet is the man who, if you remember in the scene, it's this big, huge chase.
Mhm.
They finally hit Apache country, and it's dangerous. It's starting to get a little bit crazy. So there's a moment where there's an Apache on a horse, and Ringo Kid pulls up his gun, and he shoots him, and he hits the Apache, and then he shoots him again, and the first time, the man falls in between the two horses. Then he shoots him again. This time, he falls, and he goes all the way underneath every horse and the coach behind it. Right?
Right.
And he comes out on the other side. And what's funny about this is he told John Ford how this scene needed to be pulled off. So he told him, here's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to get to this point, and then I'm going to fold my arms together and put the legs together, and then it's going to go over me or go over the stuntman. I don't know if he was a stuntman, but I believe he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to come out okay on the other side because I'm going to fall right in between all of the horses. So he falls right in between all the horses, and he comes up to John Ford after the shot. And he said, did we get it? Did we get the shot? And John Ford goes, you know what? Even if we didn't, we're not shooting it again. Because it is so... Because John Ford knew the gravity. If he didn't perform that stunt correctly, he's dying. He's going to be trampled by horses, right? It's not just 2, right? It's at least, I think it's 6 or 8. It's like, there are a lot of horses that would have run this man over if he fell just wrong. Not to mention, ran over by a coach at the very end.
Yep.
So, to me, when you see that devotion to the craft, to stunt work, it is a tragedy that we are just now, in a couple years, getting a stunt category in the Oscars. This should have been something that we've had for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And that moment, it's not even the best moment of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. There are so many moments in that scene that if John Wayne's character, I don't know if you remember the scene. Do you remember the scene with John Wayne's character on the horses?
Where he was up riding the horses as the coach was going?
And he's jumping to each horse, the stuntman that is incredible.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. This is basically, that scene is an ode to stunt work. That is, I'm going to capture this. It's going to look good. It's going to be awesome. But also the stuntmen are what makes any of that as awesome as it is.
Right.
The coverage
is that whole scene too, and that whole scene runs probably at least 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And this is 1939. All of this is practical.
Yep.
There's not a single bit of this that was faked. From the carriage rushing and the cinematographer as he captured that carriage just going and going and going and going to the Indians falling and shooting, and just everything about that whole scene is just, this is one of the reasons why you come to Stagecoach. It's to watch that Stagecoach chase. This is the pinnacle of really what this film's been building up to, because the Apache are chasing them. Everybody's firing. They're firing back. John Wayne's up on top of the carriage at one point with his rifle, taking him out. That was I thought one of the coolest moments of that chase sequence. But yeah, that moment with John Wayne where he's jumping horse to horse, or the stuntman's jumping horse to horse, because he's got to get that rein, because one of the reins has been lost, and they've got to get control back of the carriage. Yep. And just that whole sequence was just breathtaking. From a filmmaking point of view, from a cinematography point of view, from a stunt work point of view, from just a entertaining action moment point of view, just everything about that scene was so captivating. It was exactly what you wanted it to be.
And it's in a wide open landscape, so it's not only cool to watch, it's breathtaking to watch. It's in between these mountains. It's in this wide open valley. It's
completely unobscured by anything.
It's so amazing to watch. It's so cool. And not only that, right before you get to that scene, the fact that they're even able to get to that scene at all, there's a scene where horses go into the water.
Yeah, the raft, right? Where they pulled that raft with the Stagecoach.
And I'm watching that, like, He just risked all those horses' lives. They just go right through and go right on the other end.
It was
And
brilliant.
this isn't like just up to their knees. If horses have knees, I don't know if horses have knees. I'm sure they do. It's like the horses are having to keep their head above water,
Yeah.
and as they truck along and pulling the stagecoach behind them.
Which
And
is
you're like,
floating thanks to two giant logs that have been strapped on with John Wayne's whatever straps those are called.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, that's not just impressive for 1939. If I watched a movie that came out today and saw a scene like that, I would be impressed.
Yeah.
That, even if you're thinking, oh, there's probably some kind of effect here, if it's done practically, like it is in 1939 in Stagecoach, that's an impressive moment.
Yeah.
Right? It's an incredible moment. And so you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, how did they even get this to happen? So it's not only that you have the amazing scene that's 5 minutes long, you also then have the water scene right before it that's equally as impressive, even if smaller scale. Right? Just the idea to have that scene in mind, to shoot, and then to execute it as well as they do. And let's just say, it wasn't one time. It wasn't one take. These poor horses are going back and forth in this water to make sure they get the shot that they need for that moment. Yep. It's incredible. It's really, the scenes they're breathtaking. Because the one thing, too, that you get to learn about Stagecoach is it's not just all in that Stagecoach. No. Because, not to sound too theological here, but the church is not the building, the church is the people. And I would argue the Stagecoach is not the carriage or the coach. It's the people that make the coach. Right? Oh. And that's what
you going to tell me that maybe the real Stagecoach was the friends we made along the way? Is that what you're telling me?
Stagecoach, Rosebud, same thing. Oh, dear. And that is what we come to Stagecoach for. And you see each of these moments, there's of course a lot of heart-wrenching scenes. There's of course a lot of funny scenes, comedic scenes, but it's mainly the attraction of those last 20 minutes are incredible. It's high octane, thrilling, it's fun, it's cool, it's slick, and again, it's 1939. It's insane.
It's pretty wild.
It's insane.
And if that were the end of the movie, that would be great. But it's not. There's another 15 minutes that happens after that where we've got the kid finally confronting, these guys who he's come to confront to achieve his revenge. And of course we don't see it as explicitly as maybe we'll see in some of Ford's later films with the shootout and all that kind of stuff. Much of it is just sound and cutaways. But there's still this, the movie's not over. There's still one really big thing that has to be done. And that is the Ringo Kid has to confront his enemies, who I believe he's after them because they killed his brother, if I'm remembering the story right.
Yeah.
Or they killed his brother, or they accused him of something that he didn't do and landed him in prison while they got to live free. Maybe that's what it was. But either way,
I think you're crosshairing two John Ford movies.
Am I? I might be.
I think you
but either way, the Ringo Kid still has to go and get his revenge. So the movie's not even over, and there's still more to happen. That's just, that's part of those last 20, 30 minutes of the film where everything just comes and wraps up, and then you get the beautiful Off Into the Sunset. It's a perfect Western. In that sense, it really is.
In that regard, 100%. It's not, as far as Westerns go, you're not missing anything. And in fact, I would argue you're getting more than you bargained for. There are probably going to be people who really like Westerns who may not like this film.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I don't need the character work. I don't need the character death. I need to ride around on horses, cowboys, shoot them up, saloons and spurs. And this movie's like, oh, we'll give you that. On top of tremendous character work. On top of some of the funniest lines you're going to hear all week. On top of some of the most breathtaking scenes that you're ever going to see. Stagecoach, and I don't know if you have other scenes you wanted to discuss, because I don't want to.
I think the rest I want to completely leave up to the experience of those that are now hopefully on our high praise of Stagecoach are still going to seek this film out.
And I think at the end of the day, Stagecoach is going to be a movie that when you walk away from it, you're going to be so glad you watched it. And I believe Stagecoach has something for everyone. If you want to watch it because you want some romance, it's got it. It's got it in full force, actually. If you want to watch Stagecoach because you want a goofy comedy, it's got it. You want Stagecoach for, shocking birthing twists, it's got it. You want to watch Stagecoach because you want Western shoot 'em up cowboy style, it's got it. It's got everything. And there might be people who come to it who are big fans of the B-movie Westerns, and they're like, I can take it or leave it. But they'll like at least some of it. And if you're like, ooh, is it too old? It's 1939, it's black and white. Are people really going to watch it? Yeah, I think they will. I think people will sit, and even if they're not wanting to watch it, I think they'll be sucked in. It's got one of those worlds that it's able to suck you in and make you feel for the characters.
It absolutely does.
And so, with that, we thank you guys for stopping in, hopping upon the Stagecoach for our first episode in our marathon of John Ford films. We're so excited to continue watching his films for the first time, to continue talking about them for the first time, because as I'm learning, possibly as no one's learning, this John Ford guy, he's a pretty cool director, and he directs some pretty cool Westerns. And as good as John Ford is, so are his stuntmen, and so are his writers. And I think that's what really makes a good director, is being able to surround yourself with the people who are going to be able to elevate the story to what it needs to be.
Yep.
And so, with that, we thank you guys. We always encourage you to not only listen to our podcast, but to be sure to check out other podcasts such as Film Spotting and their sister podcast, The Next Picture Show. Film Spotting, you're going to get an array of different types of topics. The Next Picture Show, they have a very specific niche in where they take two movies and they kind of compare from the past to a movie that comes out today. And so we do recommend those to you. They're very interesting, fascinating watches. Also recommend Blank Check with Griffin and David. All of these film podcasts, all of these film essayists, all of these people to follow on Instagram, look them up. They're fun. They're interesting. It helps you stay in touch with your, more cinematic side. And it's more, they're more enthralling than maybe we are at this point. But we are trying our darndest.
They're certainly a little more refined than we are.
They are 100% more refined.
That's okay. We're here for the everyman.
Yeah, we just like to have a good time. Maybe drink a beer, a White Russian, talk about some good movies, and expand our taste. That's the ultimate goal of this podcast. We want to expand our cinematic knowledge. Because we love the art form, we love the medium, and so we thank you guys again. Look forward to you guys hearing our next discussion on the John Ford classic. You know the song. Maybe you don't know the movie.
Oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine. You were lost and gone forever. Dreadful sorry, Clementine. I was trying to punt the note there to you, and you didn't do it, so now I'm the only one that's singing on the YouTube.
To be quite honest, I couldn't remember the rest of the note. So I was hopeful it would either end there and it could be an awkward, silent kind of comedic moment, or you would finish the song, and that would also leave our viewers in an awkward, silent, comedic moment. But with that being said, our next discussion will be on My Darling Clementine, John Ford's classic take on Wyatt Earp.
And with that, I need another drink.
To fuddle.
Here, here.
Don't ever let me do that again.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
I'm finished.